What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Tell Me More podcast presented by the Real Estate Cheat Code. I have Lynn with me today from the Lynn Group at Keller Williams Consultants. And I'm super excited because, Lori, you were, and you probably remember, maybe you don't remember, but you were literally right around the corner when I first got into the business at Keller Williams Consultants. And I'm super excited because we've had some conversations in the past, but I really never got to sit down and actually ask you about your real estate journey. And so I appreciate you taking some time out of your day today to jump on and just to share a little bit with my audience.
Sure. Happy to do it.
So Lori, where we always start on the Tell Me More podcast is the very beginning, childhood. What was life like for you growing up? Where are you from? Did you have any hobbies, anything that you really did as a kid?
Yeah. So I grew up on a small farm in Wisconsin. So I am used to working a lot, milking cows, feeding the animals, raising chickens, pigs. I mean, we had it all. The only thing that we didn't have on the farm really was horses. And that's because our dad said, well, you can have a horse that you have to feed, or you can have a mini bike that we can put gas in.
They both get you from point A to point B.
That's right. That's right. So growing up, I will tell you, it was very difficult. My parents, when I was in 5th grade, I'm the oldest of 4 brothers and sisters. And on my 10th birthday, we moved from a little small town to another little small town and to a home that did not have indoor plumbing. It did not have heat other than a wood stove. So people talk about the winter of 78.
In Wisconsin?
In Wisconsin. In Wisconsin, the winter of 78 was a horrible winter. And my brother and I would have to walk uphill to the well pump with a 5-gallon bucket of water and carry it down. And I'm 10 years old and he's 8. Carry it down the hill into the house so that we had water. We had an outhouse. We had to trudge through the snow to get wood that was obviously you can't cut down a real tree. You have to,
Right.
Because otherwise the wood's not dry enough. But we heated our house with wood and that was it. So it wasn't until the spring that we were able to, and again, this is Thanksgiving when we moved in.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until the spring that we were actually able to have somebody come out and excavate to put in running water to the house. So 1 bathroom with 1 shower and 6 people. Very different than today's life in the city. But certainly we had an opportunity to do anything we wanted to do.
Yeah.
If we wanted to raise something for 4-H, we could. If we wanted to sew a quilt, if we wanted to bake a pie. It was a great experience because we could do anything we wanted. And because I lived in a small town, I got to play every sport.
Yeah.
I played volleyball, I played basketball, I ran track, in the band. When I first started, I played the clarinet. And then the next year I got to play the flute. And then the next year I played the, not the tuba, cornet.
Yeah.
Cornet. But it was a small town. There wasn't any money. So all of the instruments were used that we just went from the next class to the next class. Yeah. But it gave me a really good opportunity, again, to do anything I wanted to do. So by the time I graduated high school, I didn't really have a plan. Honestly, I wasn't that book smart. I was pretty young. When I graduated high school, I was, 17 and a half. I didn't turn 18 until November. So I was pretty young,
Yeah.
A young senior. And I was kind of a C student. I don't know that I ever got a D, but not a ton of A's and B's.
Yeah.
But I had an incredible drive. So I wanted to try everything. I wanted to do anything. I wasn't afraid to learn to go sailing. or to water ski or whatever.
Yeah.
So when I graduated from high school, I went to Virginia Beach to help my aunt. Her husband was back then an F-14 fighter pilot in the Navy. And I helped her for the summer. And she's like, well, what do you want to do with your life? And I'm like, well, I'm working at this grocery store helping you. Like, that's pretty good. And she's like, oh, no. You have to have a plan. And so I went back to Wisconsin, started college, joined the Army as an Army reservist. So in January of 1987, January 5th, because of course I love cold weather, apparently, I left for Fort Dix, New Jersey. And once again, one of the coldest winters New Jersey ever had. So I went through basic training in New Jersey, went to Indiana. I loved the military because even though I was only a reservist, I had so many opportunities. Anything you wanted to try. I was a legal specialist when I started. When I came back to Wisconsin, I went back to college and started ROTC, which again, great leadership, great opportunities. Started ROTC, ended up moving to Milwaukee. I had met a guy and he was from Milwaukee, so I moved to Milwaukee. And when I was in Milwaukee, on my way to college, I would always see these real estate signs. Can't remember the name, like Polachecki or something. But I remember learning in college at UW Milwaukee that this man was an immigrant. I don't know what country, maybe Poland, back then, I don't know. But the reason I'm thinking Poland is because I know that his ancestry was Polish. But anyway, I can get sidetracked easily because then I try to remember. But so basically what happened is I learned that this guy immigrated to Milwaukee and he was a cab driver. And one day he gets somebody in the cab from the airport. And he says, I'm only here for a short amount of time. I've got to buy a building. And the cab driver says, oh, well, give me your card, And I remember his English wasn't that good. That's another point of this. But he said, hey, you know what? Maybe I'll see somebody. Later that day, he gets a guy in the cab and says, things are so bad. It's just so bad. I'm losing my building. I have to sell my building.
Oh my gosh.
And this guy put the deal together.
That is crazy.
Became one of the most successful real estate agents in Milwaukee. And so I said, you know what? By this time, I'd focused more on school. I was definitely more of an AB student. And I decided I was going to get my degree in accounting. But my plan is that I wanted to be in real estate, but to have that accounting background so that I would be able to talk numbers with people and not just have it be about showing a house.
Yeah.
So I took real estate classes in Milwaukee in the fall of 88, right? No, it would have been later than that. The fall of 90, Desert Storm. We knew that the unit I was attached to was getting mobilized, and I was a cadet in a command position. So I'm one of the few people in the United States that actually got a field commission because I wasn't finished with my training, but I was in a command position and I was needed. Well, of course, January of 92, Desert Storm or 91 was over as fast as it started. And in Indiana, I went to a military school in Indiana again and met somebody. And he said, hey, why don't you come back to Columbus? And at that time, I didn't really have anything better going on. And I said, well, what the heck? So I came back to Columbus, got a job. I graduated from Franklin University with my accounting degree. And I was working as a controller of a manufacturing company. My husband and his father owned a drinking straw company. So we made plastic drinking straws.
Okay.
And I worked every day. My husband and I, when we had our first daughter, I was back to work. I had her on a Sunday on a Monday, and I was back to work on Friday doing payroll. The second child, it was 1 week. Third child, it was 10 days. Fourth child was Zoe in the summer of 2002. And I took 2 weeks off of work. And when I came back, the people at the company, not my family, but the people at the company gave me so much static that I had taken off so much work. And I said, nope, you know what? Things are going to change. I didn't tell anybody. I signed up at Hondros, snuck the classes in whenever I could. And on Halloween of 2002, I got my real estate license.
You know, I always feel, and by talking to top producers, right? You know, the early childhood, the early stages of life. A lot of times we don't take time to actually sit and reflect on like those journeys and those decisions and how it got to, this point. I wanted to ask you, going back to the very beginning of your story, your journey, what was one of those takeaways of living in that, moving to that second small town, that house, right? When you were telling me, I'm like, man, like, talk about, a privileged life that we get to live now just with, plumbing, basic plumbing, not having to walk to the outhouse or things like that. And I'm like, man, Lori probably doesn't get upset about much of anything. What was something maybe that you took away back then that has impacted the way that you think about your business now?
So this might sound silly, but I knew that I was going to work so hard that I would not be in this position again. I knew that I wanted to have things that listen, growing up on the farm was a great experience, but you did not go on vacation.
Yeah.
You worked 7 days a week, and I wanted to have a life that I could control.
Yeah.
That if I wanted to take my family on vacation, I could go on vacation. And I think that one of the biggest things I took away is, being on the farm, working that hard, I truly know the value of money and how hard it is to make money. My parents worked very, very hard. I mean, I always joke and say, we didn't even know how poor we really, really were.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to be able to help people in their life and be able to be a positive to them and to understand what it came. People talk about real estate and like, oh, $500,000 house, $1 million house, 2 million. No, you know what? I treat everybody the same. If it's a $50,000 buyer or $5 million buyer, it is the exact same way.
Yeah.
So I think that it just really, the big takeaway is the work ethic. I worked really hard, but I wanted to be able to be a blessing in people's lives and not have to work 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
Yeah. Do you think your journey of moving to multiple locations, having multiple, small town Milwaukee, right? Join, ROTC college here, right? Finish, in Columbus. Do you ever think about how that has impacted you as a real estate agent and talking to strangers?
It's funny because I do think about that. And I think about the fact that there's a book that I read, The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. And I almost feel like I was living that book before I ever even knew about that book. Going from place to place, I always had opportunities. And I knew that no matter what life threw at me, that I could make it work. If I didn't have 10 cents, I would figure out how to make it work. So I think by, meeting people, different lives of people and understanding that not everybody is on the same journey. And you have to put yourself in the place where your client is at that time. So, John, I did a lot of short sales with people. And it was very easy for me to be compassionate to them because I understood what it meant to not have money.
Yeah. I think that was one of I bring it up now quite a bit. I always say, I'm still young, but I'm wiser now in real estate. Jared on our team, he always used to say when he got into the business and different perspectives and things like that. He always used to say, we change lives. When we sell houses, we
Mhm.
change lives. And in the beginning of my career, I was always like, man, I'm just here to sell houses, right? Like, I'm just like get a client, show houses, close, on to the next, right? And
Yeah.
never really understood the impact of what home ownership really does for people. And back then, right, obviously you brought up short sales, and when I got in 2011, same thing, right? It impacted people negatively in that light, but now look at it now, right? And the
Mhm.
wealth and the family wealth that is generated because of real estate. And I never fully understood that until I got older, in my years of not just in real estate, but in life, right?
Yeah.
You got to understand that, yes, what we actually do, whether you mentioned a $50,000 house, for someone, that's a lot of money to that person.
Yes, it is.
Or the
Yes, it is.
$1.5 million house, that's a lot of money to a lot of people, or that person
Mhm.
that's buying that house. And I always say that it's best for a real estate agent to go and buy their own house, to go
Mhm.
through the process themselves and
Yes.
understand the stress of, and I think we get desensitized to that as real estate agents because we just
Mhm.
do it every day. But that moment when you go and try to buy your own house and you're like, oh, like, like, I don't know, am I offering too much, too little?
Right.
Like, yeah, I think it's so important. But
Mhm.
talking to agents that have success in the business, and the ones that have jumped around, like I went to 3 different schools growing up, had the, different dynamics. I went from a very small school to a larger school, and having to, and then coming down to Ohio State. Ohio State was a whole nother world for me.
Mhm.
And looking back, that has helped me with the relationship skills and building the relationships in my business now. I didn't know it
Mhm.
back then. Back then it was all negative, right? Like, I don't want to move schools. I don't want to get new
Mhm.
friends. I don't want to,
Yeah.
so it's all perspective. But so if I catch up, 2002 is when you
Mhm.
went to school, real estate
Yep.
school.
Mhm.
Okay. Did you get licensed then at the end of that year, or was it the beginning of
Right
2000?
then, I got
Okay.
licensed on Halloween. Yep.
Let's
I had
dive
no
into
idea what I was doing.
I was gonna say, let's dive into that. When you made that decision, obviously, you were a part of a family that had the entrepreneur background, right? Running their own shop and doing that. Did you have supporters, doubters? Where did people fall in your family or even in your friends group of, did they think you were crazy or not?
My husband has always been the number one supporter. No matter how hard it has been, he has always been number one. And, there were so many times that, I mean, there's so many good blessings, but there were so many times that people would just say mean things. I think part of it was because I worked so hard to support our family.
Hmm.
And, I worked a lot. I mean, going through the short sales, my husband has a lot of health problems. He hasn't worked for 20 years. And, you know, I went one, my oldest daughter at the time, she was in seventh grade and she played volleyball. Well, seventh grade would have been like, 20s, I don't know, 2008, 9, somewhere in there. Like things were getting really bad.
Yeah.
And I was taking every scrap of real estate I could get. I mean, everything. And she had this volleyball tournament. And again, seventh grade, right? We're not talking about like the national championship. But what I would do is every morning I would get up, get the kids on the bus so I could see them. I'd work all day, come home at like 4:30, be with them from like 4:30 to 6:30. We'd have dinner, like get everything settled. My husband, of course, took like raised the family in, in the
Yeah.
meantime.
Yeah.
But we had a plan. I saw him every morning, saw him every night. Then I'd go back out and work again because I mean, it was a very difficult time.
Mhm.
And so anyway, that being said, we were at she had a volleyball thing and it was in Grove City. And I said, oh, Kylene, this is great. I have to show houses in Grove City on Saturday. I'll take you. So I'm so excited because I haven't been able to see any of her volleyball games in the middle school, but I'm going to be able to see this. So I go down there and I'm so excited. And I walk up to the coach and I introduce myself and I'm like, I'm Lori Lynn, I'm Kylene's mom. And there's 3 women standing there. And one of them looks at me and goes, Kylene does have a mom.
Mm. Mm.
That was pretty rough.
Yeah.
Because they didn't know, what I had been doing. Certainly didn't know my husband has a lot of health problems.
Yeah.
And that as hard as real estate was, that was a low point.
Yeah.
It really was. That was very hard.
It's one of those things that this is the stuff that they don't teach us in school, right? Like they don't teach the importance of, I asked that question, do you have supporters or doubters? Because some people use the doubters as the chip on their shoulder to prove them wrong. And some people, they need and I'm sure there's a combination of both,
Yeah.
right? You need some combination of both, but people don't understand and they don't teach you in school how hard it actually is to go out and start your own business, right? They don't I always talk about it. You have to audit your circle, and that may mean family sometimes, right? If your family is negative and they just puke on you all of this negative things, or why would you give up a nice career and a cushion job and all of this to go and do something that's 100% commission based and no certainty? That has a big impact on the way that you view real estate in your business, especially starting out. I think as you get into the business, into the industry, obviously you're a little bit more mentally strong and tough around some of those things.
Yeah.
You don't need that as much, but man, significant other support, friends, whatever it is, you need it because you're a top producing agent, with a successful team, same here. And we all, it's what I love about real estate. We all go through the same stuff. It doesn't matter if you're selling 400 homes or if you sell four houses.
Yeah, it's the
We all
same
have
thing.
the highs and we all have the lows and we all have the mental struggles and the
Right.
doubt and all that kind of stuff, and
That's right. And I was one of the first people in the market to actually have a team.
Mhm.
Way back when the Gary Keller book about a team.
Yeah.
I I might have even done it before Tim Reel. I mean, I think in our office I might have been the first one.
Yeah.
And it was very lonely. It was very lonely because I didn't really have a lot of people to talk to. One day I called Jill Rudler. She was at Coldwell Banker, I think, or HER, I can't remember. And I said, Jill, can I just talk to you? I just need somebody to talk to because being a woman in this industry, having a team, and not having anybody to really mentor with and to talk to. And and she was a big help. She really was. And it got easier to ask people, but so many years, John, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, and I'm driving home. And when I would put on the GPS home, I was like, oh, I'm going home, and it was a very lonely time.
Yeah. How did
So,
I know you mentioned short sales a couple times.
yep.
How did, 2002, 2003, how did you think about building your business then? Lead me up through 08 and 09,
Yeah.
and because obviously you've been in long enough to where you've seen all of the markets, you've seen the rise up, the crash, the rise up
Yep.
again, and who knows what's going to happen, in the future. Right. But I want to specifically talk about how did you focus on building your business? Because you're not from Columbus, right?
Great
And,
question.
2002 pre-internet leads for the most
Yep.
part. I know there was internet was becoming a thing, but, pre-team concept at that
Yep.
time. Kind of walk me through that journey.
That is a really great question. So when I first started, we literally had no money, because the one thing I didn't tell you is that the manufacturing plant, we were losing all of our business to China. They could make drinking straws way cheaper than we could. Their material, their drop ship to the United States was cheaper than our material cost before we put it through an extrusion line. So it was we were dying. We were hanging on for dear life. So when I said to Mark, look, I'm going to get into the real estate business, and, but we didn't have the money. But you know what? I was a scrapper. I was always a scrapper, and I grew up with nothing, right? So I can make a lot go a long way. So what I did is I figured out pretty quickly that I didn't need color. I could use yellow paper with black ink. And then from the yellow paper and the black ink started the sunflower logo. And my kids, we had a wagon, and we would go around the neighborhood, and my neighborhood was amazing. They knew how hard I was working. They could see it because I'm out there delivering stuff with kids, and and then I started doing flags, and me and the kids would go down the street with flags on Memorial Day weekend. So, the community really saw how hard I was working. And, they have really been, my lifelong friends.
Yeah.
So even though not being from here, I think people realizing that I was doing the best I could, and that if they needed me, I was there. Just tell me, what do you need? How can I help you? So that really, again, black ink, yellow paper. So when the short sales and things started happening, I was already so lean anyway. The hardest thing for me was that I would go to somebody's house and I could sell their house, but I wasn't getting paid. It was always like on the border of, okay, I can get through this without you having to do a short sale, but I'm not getting paid. I'd get $500.
Right.
So, trying to raise a family during that time, it was hard. I mean, we made it. And, there were times, and I just prayed and I said, God, all I need is my cell phone to work and gas in the car.
Yeah.
And I'll make it work.
Yeah.
So I think the grit, I think that people, I really didn't have any doubters. I really didn't. Except of course, the one lady. But I've always known that back to the farm, any opportunity, if I wanted to try it, I could try it. And I do a lot of things. I mean, I try things in real estate. Some work, some don't. But,
I want to touch on that because I think that is ego is something that holds a lot of people back. But before we touch on that, I want to go back to what you said about the neighborhood noticed. And I think a lot of times as new agents, if you're a new agent, like, lean into that. Same thing for me. Like, I was 22 years old, looked like I was 18. But my buyers knew back then that I'd answer the phone right away, or I'd call them back, or I'd be willing to show them, the 15 homes on a Saturday because there was 35 houses to choose from in the same neighborhood, right? Just different color variations. And, so many times just by leaning into just saying, hey, I am new, I don't know, but I will work hard, right?
Yeah.
I will communicate with you.
Yeah.
There were a lot of times where and for me, 22 being younger, talking to someone that may have just came out of a bankruptcy or had a foreclosure or had a short sale, and showing them that homeownership was still something that was good for them.
Yeah.
We just had to think about it differently and do it differently. There's a lot of times people just wanted to work with me because they just saw how hard I worked.
Yes.
And because I was new to the business, or newer to the business, a couple years in. And I think a lot of agents are just afraid to just lean into that a little bit. You said the neighbors noticed. They saw that you're putting in the work, in the wagon, bringing the kids along, doing it consistently. And here's what I learned is most people want to do business with people that are busy doing business.
Yes.
And if it's something as door knocking or, putting flags out or neighborhood events or internet leads and dials and all those things, you will eventually be rewarded for those efforts.
Yeah.
Now, I want to now I lost my train of thought of the second thing I wanted to touch base on. Um, I forget. I forget
Um,
what it was. um, so the short sales. So we'll just go through 08, 09. That's kind of what got
yep.
you through that time. Oh, ego. That's what it was.
Yeah. Ego. Yeah.
And trying new things, right? You know, we will lose agents in this next iteration of real estate. And a lot of times it will be just because of their ego and they don't want to pivot or try
Right.
something new or do
Hmm.
something new. But what I understood and understand now, being in the business and talking to people, is you have to be open minded and be willing to adapt within your business. And for you, that was switching to the short sales. And yes, maybe
Yes.
sometimes it was working for free, and but maybe that free deal turned into 5 referrals
The
if you did
relationship.
something
Yep.
good, right? Or sometimes
Hmm.
it was I made $300 or I made $1,500 or whatever the
Hmm.
case may be. Um, did you always know that you were going to like, was short sales a plan, or did it just kind of fall into your lap and then you're just like, hey, this is just my thing now?
No, I don't know. It was that, John, we had 5 kids and we need food on the table.
Mm,
So if it was a trailer in Pataskala for $40,000, I was driving to Pataskala.
mhm,
If it was $15,000 in New Straitsville, I was driving to New Straitsville. So it really, the now obviously after over 20 years, it's different because I don't have to take every single scrap of everything.
yeah,
But you know, whatever the challenge is, whatever is going on with the market. So I think it goes back to treating people the same, compassionate, having those relationships, because when I call my clients, they know who I am.
yeah,
I mean, in my phone right now, if you just picked a letter and pushed a person and there's 4,000 people in there, I'm pretty sure they remember who I am
yeah,
because I communicate with them. I talk to them. I check on them. I post notes on Facebook. I, send a magnetic calendar every year. So, those relationships, no matter how bad it was or how tight it was, I always was working on the next thing. I was never satisfied with, like, okay, let's take an example. So in Ballantrae, I've sold a lot of houses in Ballantrae in the last 12 months. Does that mean I'm going to stop everything I'm doing and only work in Ballantrae? Nope. I might do more flyers or do something more in Ballantrae because I've got a good momentum there. But I remember years ago that there was somebody and she said, "Oh, and now this is back many years ago. I don't sell anything under 250." And I was like, "Well, good for you." And the short sales came and guess what?
mhm,
She was out of the market.
yep,
So,
yeah,
you're right. The ego, it does have a big impact.
yeah,
It really does because you have to be able to say, "You know what? I made a mistake. I did not realize that. How am I going to fix it?" And if you can't do that, you lost that relationship with that person.
yeah, yeah. It's funny because I think a lot of people have that stance with Zillow, and I don't know your stance on it, right? But like, hey, why would we work with Zillow? And for us, we're Zillow heavy. It's like, well, that's where
Mhm.
the buyers are, right? I'm going to be where the fish is, and so you can think about it however you want to think about it. But are those agents where it's like, I'm never touching internet leads. I'm never working with, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, well, that works for you. But
Yeah.
what happens when the market changes and interest rates go up and now your SOI is not buying as much or whatever the case may be, right?
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly. You have to be willing. And oh, I've got a perfect example. At our team meeting on Tuesday, we were talking about the changes in what, obviously with the brokerage fees. And I said, "You guys, do you guys remember when we started doing dot loop and how much everybody hated dot loop?" Yeah, yeah. I go, "Remember how, yeah, we're going to leave this business because we hate dot loop." And I said, "So why don't we look back 20 years? What if we would still be the only team faxing something?" And we don't, and I say, "Look, I don't like change. I mean, I'm 55 years old. Do you think I like change?" No, but you know what? It's going to happen. So you have two choices. You can either embrace it or you can move out of the way because somebody else is going to embrace it.
Yeah. The train, the train's I always tell people the train's moving. You can watch it go by or you can jump on.
Yes.
It's up to you. Right.
Yep.
And that's why I tell my agents now, real estate's still going to sell. It's never going to stop.
People
It's just whether or
always
not you
have to
want to
buy and
change.
sell. And
Yep.
you know what? And that's what I tell my team all the time. I'm like, you know what, you guys, no matter what people are buying and selling, we have to be first in line.
Mm-hmm. And you have to be able to do the things to identify those buyers and sellers.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, even short sales, right? Like
Yes.
if you think real estate just stopped with short sales, foreclosures and all, like you're mistaking. No, the buyers just changed. I want to touch, and I know we're getting close on time. I want to touch base on something that you also mentioned, that you were probably one of the first ones in your office to build the team.
Mm-hmm.
What was that thought process like? And why did you make that decision?
So, because I was very strong at building relationships and following up and taking care of people, I started to realize that I can't do everything in 24 hours. And I had an admin, but it wasn't just that. It was that I needed somebody else to help show houses. And now all of a sudden I have leads that I can give people. So I started with my first person and then I added on a second person and it just kept growing. And I've learned a lot about teams throughout the years. One thing I will say is the reason that I feel I have a very successful team is because my team members have been with me a long time.
Mm.
And I find a lot of teams turn and burn through people. But she's been with me, I don't know, 16, 17 years. Melinda's
Awesome.
been with me 10 years. John's been with me 12 years. And it's because we support each other and work together. I am not like, I'm the queen. Look at here. No, I am down in the foxhole with them.
Yeah.
So, and they see that. And, one of the biggest compliments that I get from people is somebody will say, you know what? When something is coming down, you want Lori Lynn in your foxhole. And it's because I'm going to do what it takes to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not just going to go, oh, yeah, it's getting too hard. So, let's just find another buyer. And our team, we have a great reputation. And it's because we work really hard to keep the deal together. And if I'm in a multiple offer situation, John, and I always say, if they haven't worked with me before, I say, look, I really ask you to look at the houses we've sold, call the other agents that we worked with and ask them. You can pick anybody you want. Ask them, how were they to work with? Because I can tell you that we are going to work very hard to get the deal done with zero drama. And it matters.
Yeah.
It matters when you're in a multiple offer and the agent goes to their seller and says, here are 4 offers. And, I've worked with this realtor before. I've worked with this one. They're the exact same offer. This realtor gets the job done. This realtor, it's always a fight to the finish.
Yeah. Yep. I want to ask you a question around the leadership of a team. How do you, because you have agents that have been with you for a long time, and that's not common in our business. Loyalty is not really a thing in
Right.
real estate, whether it's team or brokerage, right? Like
Yes.
agents just, there's no real true loyalty in my opinion. But how do you manage the ego, the expectations, all of those things with your agents? Because I think that is, when you're building a team, right? Agents become successful. They start looking at paychecks. They start looking at what's going to Lori or what's going to, in my case, Ryan. And how do you manage those? For those that are thinking about building a team or currently building a team, how do you manage those as a team lead?
So I've actually incubated teams in my team because I knew what their goal was.
Yeah.
And Lauren Wyatt, From the very beginning, she was with another agent in Keller Williams before, and she came to me and she says, Lori, I really want to have a team. And I said, you know what? Come to my team. I will help you. I'll guide you. When you are ready to do your own team, you go for it. And we have a great relationship. It's not about, it's about people empowering other people. It is not about holding them down.
Yeah.
If there was somebody that I felt, here, another perfect example. During the short sale time, I had somebody on my team, Jolie McNeil. God loved her. Loved her. She was at OSU. She graduated. But an opportunity came up. And it was so hard let's face it. The short sale time was very difficult. A friend of mine was the manager at the Hummer dealership. And he said, Lori, I really need a good salesperson. Do you know of anybody? Now I could have said, meh, but I said, you know what, Brad, I'll tell you what, I do. And I really hope that I can get her back because times are really tough right now and she needs something more stable. But you're going to find out that she's so good. She is still selling cars and she is phenomenal. But
Awesome.
had I said, oh, nope, don't know anybody, and wasn't willing to help her, she would never be able to be where she is today.
Yeah.
So it's about helping each other and understanding where we are in life. I am so proud of my team. We have a great team. I can tell you, if people start doing things, like if we had somebody that came on our team that was negative, that was creating problems, we would have to ask them to leave because that's not how our team is.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to ask you some rapid fire questions because I know we're getting close on to time, and I appreciate the time that you gave us today. Looking in the future, what's a goal that you're looking to accomplish in the next 12 months?
Okay. I actually took notes. I wrote some things down because I knew you were going to ask me things. I had to think about it. Okay. So in 12 months, I want to start owning my own investment properties because that is something. We have a house in Florida that is not an investment. It's more for our family, but I want to start building wealth with investment properties, with rentals.
Long-term or Airbnb, or doesn't matter?
Long-term.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Awesome. 12. What's a 5-year goal for you?
5-year goal is to have 10 rentals and be super focused on a timeline for where I'm going to be when I'm 65.
Okay.
So my goal when I was 45 is to have 20 different streams of income by the time I was 65, which is one a year. And I have 10 different streams of income now.
That's awesome.
So those 10 rental properties will give me the 10 other ones that I need.
Yeah.
But also have a plan because I want to spend time with my grandkids.
Mm-hmm.
I want to spend more time in Florida. So is it going to be that, right now, Monday is Nina Day. I'm Nina. I have my grandkids on Mondays. So is it going to be, Nina Days twice a week? But I really want to have a plan so that I can be there for my family, for my team, and for my grandkids.
I'm going to ask you a tough question. What's a legacy goal for you?
Oh, boy.
I didn't prep you for that one.
No. That when it comes my time to leave this earth, that people say she did the right thing. That's what it would be.
Yeah. Last question. If you could give our audience one piece of advice that you maybe received early on, or maybe one that you give if people ask you, whether they're new to the business, building a team, whatever it may be, what is that piece of advice?
Focus on selling real estate. Quit chasing the squirrel. Every time something new comes, do not jump on board. Wait, evaluate. 10 years ago, we started saying we will make no changes unless there's an emergency reason, COVID, until November of every year. So our social media, we do the same thing. If a new thing popped up tomorrow, like AI, social media, we are not jumping on it. We are going to evaluate and make no changes until November. So I would say it is stick with what it is. Quit doing all these things everywhere else. Just focus on doing the right thing. Focus on, people, their legacy, their financial freedom, their financial future, their home ownership. Be proud of that.
Yeah. Lori, thanks so much, for your time and sharing your journey. I really enjoyed getting to know you a little bit more. I love hearing the journeys of agents because, I think that part of the reason I believe our industry is broken, and part of that is because I think, when people get into this business, they feel like they have to do social media now, right? They have to be a listing agent. They have to send out mailers, right?
Yeah.
And it's like time and time again, I bring people on like yourself that are out crushing it and doing business, and we all do it differently, and it all works, right? At the end of the day, it's relationship and conversations. What you just described as waiting until November 1st. I asked my coach this probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it's, why do we always feel like we have to do more? Like, why can't I just prospect? Why do I have to record videos? Why, even this podcast, right? Why do I have to do this podcast, right? Like, why do I have to do more? Because if we just focused on the few things that actually moved our business forward, we would all be way more successful, right? And I loved that November 1st deadline, and I'm assuming that is because you never will put anything in place within that year. It's going to be implemented into the following year.
Yes.
Am I assuming that correctly?
Yep.
So I was thinking.
Yep. So you're not going to see us.
If you guys are listening, take note, right? Maybe because here's the thing about that. A lot of times, distractions show up in the form of opportunities, and they may be opportunities, but they're actually a distraction to you right now in the moment. And it's because a lot of times we do not take into count time, effort, energy, skills, right? That you actually need to work on, have, build, create in order to actually make that thing an opportunity.
Right.
So therefore, it's a distraction. So I love your role. The audience takes note of that.
Yep. I hold the distractions back until November 1st. And we have a list. We've already got a list started, things that we're thinking about, but we will not make a change.
That's awesome. Lori, for those that are listening and those that are watching, Lori's phone number is down below. If you just loved her story, if you're thinking about buying, selling, investing in real estate, hell, if you have an off-market deal, maybe for her to buy as a rental or her first rental, hit her up.
Exactly. Call me.
If you, I don't know if you're taking people on your team, but if you want to join our team, connect with her. But for Lori, those that are maybe listening in on the audio version, the podcast version, what is the best way for someone to connect with you?
My phone number, the 614-395-9628.
Awesome. Lori, thanks so much.
Thanks,
I really enjoyed the conversation. If I can do anything for you in the future, please, let me repay you for your time and for your, expertise and your knowledge. I got to learn a lot today as well. So I know the audience is learning from you as well. But thanks so much. And we'll talk again here soon.
All right. Thanks, John.
All right. See ya.
All right. Bye.